curious. Today we're going to talk about job descriptions, and it will lead into lead conversion. And I'm curious, what do you think the job description is? Let's start with this one of a waiter. Use the chat box. By the way, I don't have any right or wrong answers. I'm not going to tell you. John says to serve. What else is the job description of a waiter? If you were to go in, apply for the job of a waiter, what would your job description be? What would be on that initial document? Customer service, sure. Fill out what their needs are, or find out what their needs are. That's from Joy, Realtor Joy. What else do you got? Represent the face of the company. Sure, that would be the responsibility of the waiter, right? If they have a great experience, they often indicate that as part of their overall experience. Great service, expedite orders, make yourself money, great customer service. So absolutely, we kind of get a pretty clear picture in our mind. Michael says negotiator, Joe says customer service, Julie says fulfill the customer's needs. We kind of get a good picture of our minds because each of us have had the service of a waiter and what a job description of a waiter is. How about a CPA? What is the job description of a CPA? A tax professional. You might be visiting one right now. Efficiency, get your taxes done, Joe says. What else? Protect your clients. I can't read this fast. So prevent you from an IRS audit, knowledgeable about the tax laws, interpersonal skills. Sure. These will all be the job description. Take care of his daughter and pay for her for every want and needs. That is from Christina, whose father is a CPA. How about this one? Last one, probate attorney. What's the job description? You're starting to get into a rhythm here. I see these chats coming in fast and furious. What's the job description of a probate attorney? Strategic structures of business. I think Joe is referring to the CPA. Okay, Danielle says protect assets, keep you within the law, negotiate. What else does a probate attorney do? Maybe navigate through the probate process. Serve families during difficult times, absolutely. Compassion for their situation, probably on the list of probably on the job description list, absolutely.
I don't know, I don't have it.
Let's skip and let's look at the next slide, LG. Take me to the next one.
I think it is though.
And Brian, can you help me with muting everyone else that's on board here? How about your job description as a real estate specialist? What is your job description? You know, it's often easy to see what the job description of the services that we use and the people that we meet. Do you know what your job description is as a real estate specialist? Now, this could be a buyer specialist, listing specialist. Derek says to educate, okay. What is your job description? To serve, solve homelessness, customer service, handle the transaction, serve families in purchasing homes, all very true. What is the job description of a real estate specialist? Kevin says, help clients purchase and sell properties. Help my clients maximize their return on their investments. Teresa says, be a great listener. That would certainly be a key aspect in concierge. Specialize in area of real estate. Go ahead and take us off of screen share here, Lorenzo, just for a moment. I'm going to bring you right back on. Do you see there's a lot of different diversity in answers, various response of what is the role of a real estate specialist? And you know, the irony is that most of you are independent contractors. Well, of course, we have some employee team members, but most of you are independent contractors. Do you think it's important that we have a clear job description of what you do as the real estate specialist, both in concierge? You could reference that with our buyer specialists, listing specialists, our leads, our coaches. And I have a belief that there are three things that trump everything else on your job description as a real estate specialist. LG, go ahead and put up the screen. And maybe some of them encompass what you're talking about here. And here's what my musings are on this topic and have been for several years. I think that you have a job description and there are three things that you've got to do. Now, the truth is there's a million things you can do. And in real estate, as a real estate specialist, you've probably heard me say, You can't have a to-do list. You need to have a not to-do list. The not to-do list is all the other myriad of things that you need to do, because there are three things that trump everything. And the first thing is you've got to be a lead generator. Isn't it amazing in our industry, the amount of time, energy, money, resources we put to lead generation? We actually have an entire department designed to generate leads. And you've got to be a lead generator. And we do that through iBusiness, like Brian was talking about on your sphere of influence. WeBusiness, how we work together. A lot of those social media posts that you're sharing are WeBusiness. We create it, you share it. And team generated business, like the work that we're doing with Zillow or Dave Ramsey, or even some of the things we're doing on the first page of Google or with our website. Those are all lead generation tools, and you've got to be a lead generator. And I probably spend about 75% of my time talking to you about how to lead generate, because I think it's so important. Because the truth is, in this business, until you have enough leads, nothing else matters. Like nothing else matters. It doesn't matter if you can come into the office and you can sit at the desk, even attend these team meetings, you go out on brokers tours. Nothing really matters until you have enough leads. Leads is the starting point of all the things that we do. But I rarely talk to you about the topic today, and it's the second part of your job description. It's lead conversion. Lead conversion. And it's simply moving somebody from what I'll call one base to the next base, just moving them through the process. And the third part of your job description is provide the kind of experience they'd be excited to tell a friend about. See, I'm convinced if we do those three things as real estate specialists, all the other things that you referenced in the chat box are inevitably going to come. They all fit under these three categories. Now, the truth is, if you don't do any of these three things, and I don't do any of these three things, it won't be long that we'll be out of business. It's lead generation, it's lead conversion, it's providing the kind of experience that your customers would be excited to tell a friend about. Do you actually see the cyclical nature of this? You generate a client, you convert them from a contact to a customer, to a client, to a contract, to close, eventually to a commission. Step three, you've provided them the kind of experience they're excited to tell a friend about. They do tell a friend, and then it generates another client, which then you convert from a contact to a customer, to a client, to a contract, to close. And see, it's very cyclical in nature. And if you focus on these three, and these three are your primary job description, you're going to be successful in this business. If you get distracted with all the other myriad of things that you have going on, then it tends to distract you from the things that matter most. So today I want to spend most of my time with you talking about lead conversion. And this is so important today because so many of the lead sources that we're generating or we're working with, I referenced a couple of them already, they don't just expect great lead conversion, they require it. It's not an option. If we don't convert the client from a contact to a customer, to a client, to a contract to close, then they go to somewhere else and drive those opportunities. And so we definitely want to make sure that we're moving people through this process. Now, it's in the best interest of your clients that we have an organized sales process. Well, why would that be the case? How many times has somebody said they reached out to you about buying or selling a home? Maybe you forgot to follow up with them. I'm guilty here. And then all of a sudden I see that they bought a home with somebody else. They sold a home with somebody else. Whose fault would that have been? It's not their fault. They're not in the business of following up. I'm in the business of following up. Lead conversion is a central part of being successful as a real estate specialist, buyer or listing specialist. Let's go to the next slide. So what does that organized sales process look like? Well, I've put it into an image for you that I think will be very helpful. In the image of a baseball diamond. Now, let me ask you this. Do you know who the greatest home run hitters are in baseball, in the Major League Baseball, MLB? Put it in the chat box. Who do you think are the greatest home run hitters in history?
Followed by Hank Aaron.
Okay, I got some Barry Bonds. I got some Babe Ruth. Who are the
Um,
greatest home run hitters in history?
McGuire.
Hank Aaron,
Oh, you're talking about
Barry Bonds, Sosa, sure. Hank Aaron.
McGuire. Is that McGuire? Yeah.
Well, let me give you some stats. Did you know that Mark McGuire's home run percentage, okay, from the time, this is the percentage of the time he's at base, the percentage of the time he hits home runs. In his career, Mark McGuire, 10.61%. How many people remember the Bash brothers? Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire, right? Back in the 80s and early 90s. Babe Ruth, which many of you called out, had a percentage of 11.76%. 11%, nearly 12% of the time that he got up to base, he hit the ball out of the park. Barry Bonds holds the record for home run percentage at 12.92%. Barry Bonds, the best home run by percentage hitter in the Major League Baseball. But let me tell you this. Do you know what the percentage is of an average Major League Baseball player to get onto first base? It's 35%. In other words, it is 3.5 times more likely from the very best in history to get somebody onto first base than hitting a home run. Where am I going with this? A lot of us in this industry, when you meet somebody, you want to take them and you want to hit a home run day one. And even the best salespeople, even the best real estate specialists in our industry, they maybe do it 1 in 10. I would argue maybe 1 in 8, 1 in 15, maybe 1 in 20. Very rarely are we seeing a home run hit. But if you can concentrate on getting them onto base, you multiply your success rate. So what does that look like? Well, the first base, I would tell you, is contact. You meet somebody at the grocery store. Somebody calls you, emails you, texts you. Maybe you have a name, maybe you have an email, maybe you have a phone number, but you don't have everything you need. And they've given you a contact, and that's all you have. And your goal is to take them from contact and just get on first base and let them become a customer. A customer. Now, a customer we define as being 5 things, and I know many of you can kind of rattle these off at the top of your head, but just for purpose of clarification, especially with a lot of our new people, a customer is defined by 5 things. Number 1 is they're willing to give you an accurate name, and it is not Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. They're willing to give you an accurate phone number. They've got to have both. It's not one or the other, it's both. And it's not 555-555-55555. They're willing to give you an accurate email, and it's not do not contact me at Gmail. They're willing to give you an accurate email address that you can use. And number 4, they have not or are not an agent. How many people know that you cannot solicit the business of other people's clients? You cannot do that. So they have not or are not an agent. Now, by the way, the have not or are not agent of our industry, it's like the I'm just looking of retail, right? You ever think about that when they walk into a store, get up early in the morning, they go into a furniture store, they've got their kids, they've come in, they make a beeline all the way back to the dining room tables. The salesperson walks up to them and says, "Can I help you?" And they say, "What?" "I'm just looking." Well, they didn't get their kids up at 7:30 in the morning. They didn't make a beeline all the way to the back of the store, past the couches, past the love seats, past the sofa recliners, all the way back to the dining room table to be just looking. No, they are serious buyers when they show up at a furniture store at 9 a.m. The I have an agent, friends, is the I'm just looking of our industry. Okay, so you have to kind of quantify this a little bit, because when you start quantifying, do you have an agent? You know what they're going to tell you? "Oh, I have an agent. They live in San Francisco. Oh, it's my mom and she's on the East Coast. Oh, they live in LA. And last I checked, we have an opportunity as a team to partner with other agents within our team and to refer out to other agents. So we could partner up with that agent that is in San Francisco, that is in Los Angeles, that's on the East Coast, and send a licensed agent a referral fee. And oftentimes they're using the I have an agent as the I'm just looking in retail. And so the first step is we got to find a customer, and they're defined by these 5 things. The 5th one that they are defined by is they want to buy now or in the near future. Okay. And they want to buy or sell now or in the near future. So name, phone number, email address. They have not or are not an agent, and they want to buy now or in the near future. If you have somebody that fits this 5 categories, they are defined as a customer, and you have made it to base 1. Okay. Now they're not your customer yet. They're just a customer, and they're free to go to whatever furniture store they want. They're free to go to every open house. They're free to go to every property. They're free to look at every website. They are not your client. They're just simply a customer at base 1. And your goal is not to hit a home run. You'll have a higher percentage if you just focus on getting to the next base. And the next base is to get them to a client. Now, when they are in this customer phase, defined by those 5 things that I've mentioned, sometimes you find that they may want to see a property that eventually, it's not going to be the one that they end up with. They may show up and they want to see a property, and they look at it and it's the wrong floor plan. They may look at a property and it's located in the wrong community or on the wrong court or not with the right positioning, or it has undesirable amenities. They may show up and they want to see a property that is pending, okay? And you'll want to show them, you'll want to meet them at the property. And oftentimes what you'll do is bring 1 or 2 other properties that you can then take them to, because very rarely do they buy the one home that they've contacted you about. Very rarely do they buy the one home that they came into an open house with. And so that one property, it may not be a good fit because it's the wrong size, it's the wrong floor plan, it's in the wrong community, whatever. And you're going to want to move them to the next property. Don't cancel these appointments. You can meet them at the property and say, oh, I'm sorry, this home is now pending, but I brought 1 or 2 others that I have arrangements for us to see today. That is, they're not going to typically buy the home that they have suggested. They're looking for a home like it. Find a couple more like that in the community. Keep that conversation alive, because your goal is to move them from a customer to a client. Now, when a client is very different, a client now has the 5 things, and they have an exclusive representation agreement with you. This is a buyer representation agreement if they're working as a buyer. If they're a seller, it's a listing agreement. And this now takes them out of the market. They're not a customer going from store to store to store, open house to open house to open house, new home construction, new home construction. This now is a client that is exclusive to you, and you are now guiding them through this process. Now, people often ask me, Rick, from a customer to a client, when do I pop the question, if you will? Like, when do I ask them to become a client? In my experience, the more confidence you have, the shorter that process is from a customer to asking them to be a client. In my experience, if you wait too long to do that, or they wait too long, you have this non-committal, right? You've got this non-committal person that you're working with. In the dating world, they might call it a Peter Pan. A Peter Pan is somebody who's completely unrealistic, not serious, and lives in Neverland. Those are not clients of yours. You're going to want to get a commitment from them, and you don't want to be them to be non-committal. You want to get a commitment. You want to commit to them too, because now they're your VIP clients. But if you rush this process and you pop the question too prematurely and you've not established that relationship, they may decide to not move forward with you. So there is a delicate balance. The more experience that you have in the industry, the faster we can move them into a buyer representation agreement. In my experience, most real estate professionals can do that over the course of a buyer representation meeting or over a listing agreement. and move them from a customer to a client. Then let's go to the next step. So now they're a client. Your goal is not to hit a home run. Your goal is to get them onto third base. Third base is a contract. This is a ratified purchase agreement. If you represent a seller, you have a listing, and now you found a buyer. You've listed the property, and you've got an offer. If you represent a buyer, you have a buyer representation agreement, and now what you're doing is you're submitting an offer, trying to get it accepted so that you are in contract with a residential purchase agreement. Within that contract, you know there are contingencies and there are some timelines, and that's your goal. You have one goal as when you have a client, and that's to get them into contract, to find that right property or to find that right buyer. You've often heard me say to homeowners that are thinking about selling their home, there are 3 things that we need to do. We need to price your home right. We need to prepare it properly. And if we do so, you're going to get the highest possible price for your home with the least amount of inconvenience in a reasonable amount of time. That's what we're trying to accomplish from client to contract. We're working to get them into contract. And then from contract, we aim to close escrow. You've now got an escrow open with Maloo. You're working with perhaps Supreme Lending on getting financing, and you're aiming to close escrow. Now, oftentimes people in our industry get overwhelmed because they think of their clients or customers, and they think of them just as I've got a lead, or I've got a contact, or I've got a customer. When you start breaking this down and putting the people that you have in one of these 4 quadrants or putting them on base, you can see that the next best step for each and every person that you work with to move your clients from a contact to a customer, to a client, to a contract, to close is our organized sales process. When you deviate from the process, when I deviate from the process, I get frustrated. When we deviate from the process, I start hearing things like, Rick, buyers are liars. Or I start hearing things like, I've shown this client 100 homes, but I don't have a buyer representation agreement. They walked into that open house, they wrote an offer with that person, and now they're in contract. Or they walked into that new home construction, and I spent evening after evening, weekend after weekend working with that client. Follow the process from contact, just base hits, to customer, to client, to contract, to close.